It's great. It's great to see you all. So we're going to begin, and there's going to be a lot of interaction here. There's going to be I'm going to ask you a bunch of stuff. I'm going to ask you guys. So there's my better half, Amy Evans, and just so you know, this entire workshop is built around the combined experience of both Amy and I, and how we brought this together into a system that works and is easy to teach. So this has been a long time coming, and it's been under construction for a long time. So it's super cool. So when you signed up for this, I asked where you struggled most in setting relationships or in setting boundaries. Guess you show of hands, everybody who clicked on all of them. All of the ways I struggle in all of the ways. For some people, it's in professional, it's in business, right? Managing clients, managing coworkers, setting boundaries with other people. So I would like to ask, so what are the stories, right? What are the stories? What do we tell ourselves? Why do we struggle with setting boundaries, right? And just pop it into the chat, right? So when you go to set a boundary, when you're like, oh, I should really do something about this, I should really set a boundary around this, what are the words that comes up? I am a big language guy, and the language that shows up in your head, and I got a couple clients in here, and you guys know how important that language that we use is. They won't love me, right? Right. I'm not good enough if I'm not overworking and exhausted, right? I will be ostracized, right? They're not gonna like me, they're not gonna appreciate me. I don't want to make anybody mad, right? I want people to like me. Where do we get this? Where do we get this? Who got this from their parents? Right? Being a people pleaser, I'll be fired, right? The expectation of pain, resting is lazy. Ooh, I love that one. That's somebody's dad right there. So where did these narratives come from? When did they show up for you? When did we begin people pleasing? When did we begin setting aside ourselves? When did we begin deciding that anything other than me just showing up childhood? The good girl programming. Exactly. For a lot of us, what this looks like, what this has looked like, is performative people pleasing. Right? When we were young, we got complimented for our good grades. We got complimented. How many outstanding handwriting people do we have? How many awards for outstanding handwriting? Right? And we got complimented for our handwriting, and so we started writing papers, and we threw 100 of them away because we screwed up on one word in that last page, and it wasn't right, and we weren't going to get that handwriting compliment. Right? So all of these sort of performative ways of getting that attention, of getting that validation. For a lot of us, it looked like I don't want to get in trouble. Maybe we had an unstable parent, right? And we learned these performative ways of people pleasing. We learned these performative activities because it kept the attention off of us. It kept us from being in trouble. It kept that spotlight of maybe an unstable parent's anger off of us. So when we don't set boundaries, right? When we don't set boundaries, we want people to like us. We want to be accepted, right? We want so many of these things, and who doesn't want to be too much for somebody? Who doesn't want to be told they're too much? Right? I can't set boundaries because somebody will say that I'm too much, that I'm asking too much of them. I'm asking for too much lenience, for too much space. I'm asking for too much. I'm being selfish, right? Right. And it's all around, and it's all around not being good enough. It is all around not being good enough. So what's the truth? What's the truth in all of these examples? What is the truth? And pop it into the chat. I'm over the top. I'm being too pushy, too opinionated. Yeah. Oh, Western society loves telling women they're too much, right? We just love telling women, like, you are too much. You're asking for too much. You're being too much. You're too extra. That doesn't work. Tone it down a little bit. Be a little quieter. Be less shrill. Right? Like that's the fun one coming from guys in the professional world. Narcissists, right? Exactly, Marissa. We deserve to say no. And we deserve to not feel bad about it. Right? We deserve. And so let me ask you, and so one of the things that drives this behavior, this inability to set boundaries, we have to get what we want when we want it, and only then, right? Right? Conformity is safety, right? If I'm assertive, I'm bitchy. So good, right? And that's from women in business, right? When you're being assertive, right? You're being bitchy. So the truth is that someone else's emotions, someone else's response to you setting boundaries is not your problem. It is not your problem. And for some people, that's brand new news, right? That is brand new information. Oh yeah, I was told these things as a child at church. Totally. Well, because in church, and I don't want to get I was a preacher's kid growing up, so I'm overqualified to poke fun of the church. I'm not gonna get into it, but yeah, we are taught that to conform. We are taught that saying yes. We are taught that obedience was this thing, and we were never taught to set our own boundaries. Right? We were never taught to set our own boundaries around things. So I want to say that for those of you who have never heard this and who have never experienced this, it's okay to say no. Right? It is okay to say no. It is not your job to fix other people. It is not your job. It is not your place. Other people's emotions are not your problem. Even if they choose to share it with you, if they choose to share their emotional response with you around you setting boundaries, it is not your problem and not your business. Okay, that is their response to being told no, right? It's not your responsibility. Exactly. You don't have to anticipate the needs of others. How many of us watch other people and we measure the temperature of every human being in the room? And right? We measure the temperature of every single human being in the room, and then we adjust, right? We adjust our language, we adjust our intensity. We begin asking questions and shifting ourselves around so that no one has to be uncomfortable. All of these things, the truth in all of these things is that we have been conditioned to believe that making other people feel comfortable is our responsibility, right? Making sure that other people are comfortable with us just existing in our own skin is our responsibility. And it is not. And so what we're going to start with, I was trying to morph myself to make others comfortable, right? But you're uncomfortable, right? When when we are uncomfortable, when we dim our own shine, when we diminish ourselves to make other people comfortable, what are we doing? We are saying that I am not worth showing up as the very, very best of myself. I am not, I who I am, the truth of who I am is too much. Pardon my webcam, the utility for Canon. I use my DSLR for my webcam, and they haven't quite tweaked it right for the M1 Max. So every 30 minutes, I'm gonna go black on you for about 2 seconds. So pardon me. I promise I'm still here in my there's nothing wrong with my camera. It's just the way it talks to the computer. Right. So what we do is we pretzel ourselves and we contort ourselves so that somebody else does not have to be uncomfortable. When we're children and it's a safety thing, or when we are growing up and it's a safety thing, it's really important. As we become adults, our safety takes on different sort of proportions. We can leave situations, right? And we have a little bit more agency. We have a little bit more control. We have our own cars. We have our own ability to navigate in situations. It literally saved your life. Conforming when we are young, particularly in dangerous situations, saves our life. And so what we learn is coping mechanisms, right? What we learn is coping mechanisms for safety that served us at one point, that protected our bodies, protected our egos, protected our emotions, protected us in one way or the other. And then as we grew, these coping mechanisms began to mask as skill sets, right? And being able to read the temperature of every single person in the room is really good for a teacher. It's really good for a teacher to be able to do that. It's real good for a salesperson to be able to look out into the audience, to address a group of people, identify who's uncomfortable, and begin to adjust the way they're talking. It's really, really helpful. And so what happens is it works well when we begin working in a corporate structure, right? Being hyper diligent, right? Being hyper attention to being hyper focus on details and being meticulous with money and all of these things. They work out, but these skill sets, which are not skill sets, they are coping mechanisms, and they are just masking as skill sets. Yeah, and being hypervigilant is exhausting. That's exactly right. It's exhausting, right? It is one of the biggest bandwidth drains that there are, right? When we're trying to shift everywhere. So I want everybody to take a great big deep breath right now. Big deep breath in through your nose. Most of you know me, know I teach breath work. And slowly let it out through your mouth. I want you to know in this moment you are safe. I want you to know in this moment that this conversation is safe. I want you to know that everything that you learn from this conversation is going to be safe, is going to be applicable, and you do not need to lean on old coping mechanisms that have been masquerading as skill sets your entire life anymore. And so we're going to talk about what we're going to begin with is we're going to talk about the 4 different types of boundaries. We're going to talk about this, and this works. And we're going to look at these in terms of romantic relationships, business relationships, family relationships, interpersonal relationships, our friends, everything else. And I'm going to give you some really great work to do around this. So we're going to start with We're going to start with deal breakers. And what I want you to consider, and I hope you guys all have something to write with, I want you to consider in say 4 categories what your deal breakers are. Romantic relationships with your partner, with a romantic partner, sexual partner, within a professional setting, either with your boss, with your clients, with your coworkers, with your family, right? With your family, with your family of origin or your family of choice, whatever, and with your friends. And what I want you to consider is, what are your deal breakers? And I mean deal breakers like this is the last moment that this relationship exists. Like deal breakers. When I entered my current marriage, with Amy, in our first conversation around what a relationship looks like, what we talked about, what we brought up is deal breakers. Okay. And in a relationship, in a romantic relationship, there's only a few deal breakers, but a deal breaker is a deal breaker, right? And so put into the chat, in a romantic relationship, what would be one of your deal breakers? Not necessarily 4 deal breakers in each category, because very often those deal breakers are the same all the way across the board, right? But think about, we're applying this to 4 different types of relationships. And so what would be a deal breaker in any one of these relationships for you? A romantic relationship, a friendship, a professional relationship, or with your family. What is it that ends a relationship with you in an instant? Right? And put it into the chat. Abuse, cheating, stealing, right? Good. Manipulation, lying, cheating, physical violence, right? Emotional abuse now, for sure. I would challenge you, and I ask the question, lack of trust, sure. Because if I can't trust you, we're done, right? We're absolutely done. If I cannot trust you, and trust you with my heart, trust you with my wallet, trust you with my credit card, trust you with whatever. If I can't trust you, we're done. Trust is a really good one. It's a really good one to talk about, because trust is black and white, right? Trust either is or it is not, right? There's no such thing as trusting somebody 95%, right? I trust you, but I trust you like 92% is how much I trust you, okay? Because if I trust you 92%, that means 8% of what comes out of your mouth may or may not be bullshit. The problem is I don't know which 8%, which means I have to hold 100% of it suspect, and I am not holding 100% of communication with somebody that I'm in a relationship with suspect. Trust is either is or it is not. There is no gradient in trust with our closest relationships, right? I have friends that I only trust 50%, but they don't get access to my heart. They don't get access to my credit card. They don't get access to I'm not tossing a guy that I trust 50% the keys to my car, right? Or ask him to hold my wallet or watch my dog. Repeatedly ask me to do something I've clearly, yeah. So crossing boundaries, right? Crossing a boundary, right? So when we look at deal breakers include things like violence, okay? Physical violence, verbal violence, and everybody's ignoring me, right? When I say no, so you guys are talking about setting a boundary and then having it being walked over. Okay, and we'll talk about this in a little bit. We're going to go through a couple of the examples that you guys have sent me. It's not a boundary if you're not holding it, right? It's not a boundary if you're not holding it. If you lay a boundary and it gets crossed, it's not a boundary if you're not holding it, which means that you need to take a step back and go, that was a boundary. And we're going to get into this in a second. So, but deal breakers. And here's why deal breakers are important to go into relationships. And I don't care if it's a work relationship. I don't care if it's a friend relationship. It doesn't matter. Knowing what your deal breakers are is super important, right? For me, violence of any sort. Violence of any sort. It's also not a boundary if you're not communicating it. That's correct, right? It's not a boundary if you're not communicating. How many of us have boundaries, right? That's a fun one. How many of us have boundaries, don't communicate them, and then expect people to know what they are? Then hold people, get mad when our boundaries get crossed, right? Because I want to have a boundary, but I don't want to tell you about it because I don't want you to not like me. I don't want you to not think, but I'm going to have it, right? So violence is a good one, and I say violence like yelling, slamming doors, like that's all violence, right? Like escalating, physically escalating a conversation. Getting into that yelling, getting into fuck yous in relationships are not okay with me, right? There is a level of and I don't care if you're joking. I don't care if you didn't mean fuck you. If you say fuck you to me in a romantic relationship, I'm a little bit more tolerant with my homeboys, but even that, like I don't tear my brothers down, and they're not going to tear me down. My relationships with my closest friends are really important to me, and we don't tear each other down, and I express that. So your deal breakers are the things that this ends the relationship right now. And here's the thing about deal breakers, and this is why they're important. It's why it's important to know it. This is not me telling you what you cannot do. And it's really important that I emphasize this. Our boundaries are about us and not about them. 100%. Passive aggressive. Yeah, right. Threatening the relationship. Right? Threatening the relationship. When we use the relationship as a bargaining chip, right? Like if you do this, then that's the end of the relationship, or I don't know if I can do this, right? I don't know if I can stay in this relationship. If like using the relationship as a bargaining chip, the relationship is not leverage, right? That is not your point of leverage, right? And so when you know your deal breakers going in, this is not about me telling you what you can and cannot do. Threatening suicide, yeah, nope. Passive aggressive slander, yeah, totally. But what it says is you can do anything you want, but know that if you do this, I have to leave. Right? That is the difference. That is the difference in a deal breaker. That is what a boundary looks like. That's what setting a boundary looks like. When we begin new romantic relationships, when we begin new professional relationships, when we say, look, you are 100% welcome to do anything you like. I respect you as a human. I respect your decisions. I respect everything about you. And a good example is I am a monogamist, right? And I'm not telling you that you can't sleep with other people. I'm telling you that if you choose to sleep with other people, I have to leave. And it has nothing to do with me telling you where you should be morally, where you should be physically, where you should be sexually, like all of those things. I'm telling you that my deal breaker is that I am a monogamist. And if you choose to engage with other people in an intimate way outside of this relationship, I have to go. Not you're bad, not you're wrong, not you're evil, not you're broken morally, but I am leaving. If you slam a door, you are welcome to slam all the doors that you like. But if you slam a door, I have to go. Right? That's That's the end. If you threaten the relationship, I can't be in a relationship that's being threatened. I cannot be in a relationship where threatening the relationship is something that we do. And so understand that when we set boundaries, and regardless of what type of boundary, we're going to get into these other type of boundaries in just a little bit. When we set a boundary, this is not about them. It is about me. And it is about what I am willing to accept from a partner, from a coworker, from a boss, from a friend, from a family member, any of it. It is not about telling somebody else how they can behave. And we very often are when we're having a problem, our partner, we set a boundary and our partners would go, I don't do ultimatums, right? And they go, I don't do it. It's not an ultimatum. I'm telling you that I can't be in a relationship if this is in play, right? And we can say the same thing with our clients, right? I work with clients who show up on time. Those are the clients that I work with. If you can't show up on time, you're not my client. My time is more important to me than any one client, right? So if my clients can't show up on time, then they're not my client, right? If I work in a place where I am spoken to with dignity and respect, and I come from, my background is culinary. My background is culinary in Los Angeles, and I grew up in the kitchens that Tony Bourdain talked about, in Kitchen Confidential. I have been yelled at. I have been screamed at. I've had like knives and pots and vegetables and everything else in the world thrown at me. Like it was a very, very difficult environment. And at one point I made the decision that I was never going to be treated that way again. Like that is not okay. Right. And I made some decisions about what types of behaviors would result in me untying my apron, gathering my knives, and walking out without another word. Right. I had to decide what my deal breakers were. Right. And so I encourage you to write down a few things, and they need to be super specific. Right. They're not subject to interpretation. They're not wishy-washy. They're not, one way or the other. They are specific behaviors. I saw, passive aggressive, withholding. The number one most violent act that one human can commit on another is the intentional withholding of love. It is the most violent act that one human can commit. I mean, think about withholding love from a child. Think about withholding love from a romantic partner. Think about withholding love from a parent, from somebody else. Like the deliberate withholding of love is the most violent act that one person can perform on another, right? And so when we talk about being passive aggressive, what do you mean by that? Deal breakers are hard lines in the sand, right? Violent behavior. One of mine, because I am me, right? And because I have the past that I have, my partner knows that I've been sober better than 20 years, and my partner knows that if I were to show up intoxicated at home or on a date or whatever, if I were to show up intoxicated, that is the end of the relationship, right? For me. Because if I am intoxicated, then there is a much, much larger problem going on than this evening I'm intoxicated and tomorrow I'm going to have a hangover. Like there is a much larger problem. So for me, my own sobriety is a deal breaker in a relationship. If I am in a relationship and I have a lapse in sobriety, and I have to get buy-in from partners on that. Like if I have a lapse in sobriety, you need to leave, and you need to leave for your own safety, right? So deal breakers need to be super specific, right? And have, I don't know if I understand Joe, unmute yourself and ask that question. Let's have this conversation.
Hey, Dave. Yeah, I guess I was just really curious about that. So does that mean that you would assume that if you've relapsed, that it would be because you're unhappy in the relationship? Or what if you just relapsed, obviously, because there was something deeper going on, but it had nothing to do with the relationship?
It never has anything to do with the relationship.
Yeah.
But I am a dangerous, violent, lying, stealing human being
Okay.
when I am intoxicated. Like it's got nothing to do with it. And my partner has nothing to do with whether I drink or not. Like that's never, and I'm a long way from drinking. But if I were to, it would not be because they made me drink.
Yeah.
And even having said that, even if it has nothing to do with them, I am a dangerous character when intoxicated. And I do violent, sneaky, dishonest things. I have violent, sneaky, dishonest compatriots, and so for me, and so this is a great example of a deal breaker. Like if understand that if I am intoxicated on anything, right? So there's no wiggle room here. If I am intoxicated by anything, please know that means the relationship is over, right? Take the dog and get the dog away from me, because the dog doesn't deserve me in that condition either, right? Yeah. And so no, and most of our deal breakers really have very little to do with the other person, and have everything to do with what is I am willing to accept in my life. I will not be yelled at by a partner, right? I will not be cursed at by a partner. I will not have things thrown during an argument from a partner. That's not the relationship I'm in. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Thank you, Dave. I was just curious. Thank
Absolutely.
you.
Absolutely. So here is the great part about deal breakers, right? Because let's just say in my personal relationship, my deal breaker is violence, my deal breaker is infidelity, and my deal breaker is a lack of sobriety, right? Those are my deal breakers in my marriage, and we, I really don't have a lot. What we have, once we have established deal breakers and speaking to our partners about what those deal breakers are, what we now have is permission to get insanely angry, right? I can now, Amy and I can now have all of the space in the world to disagree vehemently, to disagree intensely, to get insanely angry at each other. And once we do, once that happens, we go, okay, I'm not going to yell at you. I'm going to go, and we will resume this conversation when cooler heads prevail, right? And so my partner is absolutely certain of a couple things. Is A, I'm going to go before it escalates, right, into behaviors that doesn't work. Katie says, I like thinking that my behavior can also be a deal breaker. When I stop taking care of myself, it's a deal breaker. Yeah, is that clear? That's exactly the sobriety piece. When my behavior does something, that means the relationship is over. So when my communication with my partner devolves into an argument, and we're not making any further headway, what we can do is go, we need to save this for another time. And what she knows is that I am not about to walk out and slam the door, right? I'm going to say, I love you. I got to go. Like this, we're not communicating. I got to go. And I'm not going to kick the dog on my way out. I'm going to close the door and I'm going to go. She also knows that I will be back. And I will be back not smelling like whiskey and not smelling like another woman's perfume. She is absolutely certain that that is the truth. when we have deal breakers in play, because none of the deal breakers were in play. We're mad about what dishes we want. We're mad about what, what our financial situation looks like. We're mad about one thing or the other, right? But none of the deal breakers are in play, which means we can get as angry as we like, and it is safe. It is safe to get angry. It is safe to disagree. You don't need to agree with me. I don't need to agree with you. And it's safe. There is absolutely no, there's going to be no fallout from this disagreement. Did you want to ask a question, Terry?
No, I'm okay. My internet keeps on coming in and out.
Oh, okay. I'm just going to meet you then. No problem.
Thank you.
So when we have deal breakers, we now have permission to really get into like the grit of a difficult conversation. We can really get into the difficult aspects of that. The next are boundaries, right? So we have deal breakers and now we have boundaries. Boundaries show up and they're boundaries, things that we didn't anticipate. Like I didn't see that one coming, right? And so what we do is go, I need to set a boundary around that, right? I don't like this. I don't like that. A good example would be a coworker or a boss or somebody going, consistently asking us to work off the clock, consistently asking us once to work off the clock, asking us for favors, asking us to use our personal cars for something, asking for something that is not within the scope of our job. And I really want to be clear that these four types of boundaries work in all of our relationships. So what we can do is go, I need to set a boundary around that. We need to say, I'm not available after 7 p.m. for work phone calls. I'm not available after 6 p.m. for work phone calls. I am not available on weekends for work. Is this making sense? Right? Do you have a question, Vanessa? Okay. So when we are setting boundaries are things that come up and we're like, I need to set a boundary on this. These things get negotiated, they get established, and you can always add more. You can always add more, you can always add more boundaries, right? There's no such thing as too many, right? Because the people who love us, the people who respect us, respect our boundaries, right? If the first time that you set a boundary, somebody pushes against it, for certain that will always be their response to a boundary, right? For instance, when we start dating, the first time we tell our boss something, the first time maybe we set a boundary with our mom that we've never set before, like look, Mom, I'm not gonna hang out if you've been drinking. I'm not gonna be around here if you've been drinking. Mom, I'm not gonna, I can't show up at the last minute for one thing or another. Right? It's just not that doesn't work for me. And the moment that they start pushing back against that, we can go, no, this needs to be a hard boundary. And if you can't honor that boundary, then I'm not going to be able to maintain this relationship with you, right? So boundaries, we negotiate them, right? We talk about them, and in relationships, in work relationships, friend relationships, family, we make agreements. This is the way I need it. This is what I need. And we're going to get into the language of setting boundaries in just a little bit. But then there's requests. Okay. Requests are how to ask for what you need, right? How to ask for what you want. So I would like to hear if somebody, and you're welcome to I have a story. No, Joe, let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. Unmute yourself. What's the question?
Sorry, Dave, I didn't know if I should go now or wait to the end.
No,
So
you're good.
I just wanted to share something. You've just really got me thinking about something. So the other night I went on a date, and it was the second date. And then after, it was about, the first date went really well, and about halfway through the second date, it was about halfway through, I was like, I'm just not interested in this guy, what he's speaking about, everything. I don't feel a connection. I'm not interested. And then as soon as dinner finished, he came and sat right next to me. I was like, look, I'm ready to go home. It was about 9 o'clock. And we walked back to the ferry that we'd caught together. And as we were walking back to the ferry, he like put his arm around me, and the whole way back, he was holding on to me. And I was so uncomfortable. And it was so obvious that I'm not ready for this. But it wasn't about him not liking me, because I have no interest in seeing him again. But it's like, and this is really common with women, right? It's like, we don't want to make a big deal. And then even we went to the ferry and we sat down, and he's like really leaning in, and my whole body language was faced this way. I wasn't looking at him. Like, what in your head made you think that, he's obviously trying to kiss me. Like, what in your head made you think that was okay? And for me, it's like, I think, and this is so common of women, we just don't want to make a scene or make it a big deal. But it was clearly me not putting in a boundary.
Right. And so what that looks like is, and for women very often, particularly on dates, it is not safe to set a boundary, because you don't know if this knucklehead is going to get like angry, violent, right? Like, but when you're in a public place, when you're in a safe place, right, which is why we don't invite people back to our house for a second date, or whatever. But what you can do is you can either take his hand off of you, right, and go, I'm not comfortable with that, right, and we can say, I'm not available for that, like, I'm not, right, I'm ready to go home. Or you can even say, I'm not feeling well, like, and remove them, like, remove their hand from you. And it doesn't have to be, you don't have to throw it away or whatever. But what you can do is, and if you really felt unsafe around it, right, there's somebody you can go to, right? There's somebody there's somebody around that, if you're in a restaurant or you're on a ferry or whatever, you can go to somebody and go, look, I'm not having fun on a date. I just told him that I wanted to be left alone. Can I just come over here and hang out with you? Right. But what you can do is, when we set boundaries, right, and you just go, no, I'm not feeling it, right? I don't want to hurt your feelings, but I'm not feeling the chemistry here, right? Yeah. And just and be done with it. And that's how you do it. Like, I'm not feeling this, right? You're a great guy, you're whatever, but I'm not feeling this.
Yeah.
Right.
And I guess that's just what you were talking about before, especially as women, is not wanting to make a scene or make a big deal. And yeah, so we just keep quiet and say nothing.
Right. And hope, that they pick up the language, right? Yeah. And hope that they pick up the body language. But if they're not, then they're not. Right. And you need to set a boundary around it. Right. Yeah. And you can say, I'm not, look, I'm sorry, you're a great guy. I'm not feeling well, or I'm not feeling this, whatever. And I'm not feeling well works great, right? Because it can mean all kinds of things. Yeah. And you don't have to justify why, right? You don't have to, right? You don't, a boundary does not require an explanation, right? I'm not available for that. Or I'm not feeling this, or I'm not feeling well, is an answer, and is an appropriate response. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. Thank you.
For sure. When the third type of boundary that we can set is requests, right? And requests are how to ask for what you want. I would like to request this. A great example is I would like to request you to not come home late, and if you do, I would like to request that you don't like come home and cook after 11 p.m. Right, and we can make these requests of I make this request of my son: do not come home late at night and begin cooking. Like I'm asleep. It doesn't work, right? I have a 17-year-old son, and I would like to request that you don't do that, right? I would like to, I have a request that if one of the recent ones, but you can say that, and it is a request, and it's not a deal breaker in. It's not a deal breaker in motion. We don't necessarily need to set a boundary around it, but I have a request. I would like to request that if I'm on a diet, we don't go for tacos, right? We're gonna, if we have agreed to be super intentional about what we eat. How about if we don't take people out for tacos while in the middle of while we're doing that, right? And yeah, Amy's exactly right. We can, what Vanessa say, it's like it instinctively feels unsafe to say anything. Yeah, I totally get it. Right? Requests and preferences, and we'll get into preferences in just a second, is language that you can establish in your relationship. And a request is, I would like to request. And what that means is, this is what I want, right? This is what I want. I would like to request. And when we teach our family, like in our families, we can teach our children, we can teach our partners, we can teach our parents to go, when there's something that they would like that they are not getting, or they can say, I have a request. And then they can ask for what they want. My son can say, I have a request. I need some new shoes, right? Sure, I'll buy you some new shoes. Or you need to buy your own shoes, or like whatever the thing is. But that is how we can ask our friends and our family, hey guys, I don't like sushi. I would like to request when we're all hanging out that we're not going out for sushi, right? That's how we set boundaries and requests with our friends. It is, and Emma says, I'm still learning to request what I want, and it's okay. Yeah. And you can make requests, right? I have a request. We can make requests of our employers. I would like to request that if you need me to work on a Saturday, you let me know better than a week out, right? That is my request. I can never work this Saturday. I'm always happy to work next Saturday. I can never work this Saturday. I am never available to work this Saturday. Something comes up, whatever, that's great. I totally appreciate that. And I am not available because I manage my time. I manage my calendar, and I am never available to work this Saturday. I would love to be available to work next Saturday. So in all of our relationships, we can use requests. The third type, or the fourth type of boundaries that we can set, are preferences. And these are things that I could take or I could leave. It could go any way I want. It could go any way. But I have a preference, right? Would you like to go to Santa Barbara, or would you like to go to San Diego for the weekend? My preference would be Santa Barbara. If we ended up going to San Diego, I'm totally okay with that, right? If I felt strongly about where we were going, I would have a request. If I never want to go to San Diego, I need to set a boundary. If going to San Diego ends the relationship, I now have a deal breaker. Is this all making sense? The scale. Joseph, I think this is massively connected to our upbringing. Oh, for sure. If we weren't allowed a voice as children, yeah, children should be seen and not heard, right? It's very hard as an adult to think it's okay to have a request. So my invitation to you and my invitation to all of you is begin having requests. It's pick a relationship and begin asking for what you want, right? Love, I would like to go for pizza this week. I have a request. I would like you to take me out on Friday night. Athena, yes.
Hey, so I don't know if I can lower my hand from here. Oh, I guess I can. So what I'm learning about requests is ask, yes. It might not just be right now. So I recently asked my son if he could help me put up the mini blinds in the kitchen. And he said, yes, great. We don't have a time. Yesterday, he said, I think maybe today I could come over, but it seems like a lot of work to, and I said, you know what? It doesn't seem like it's a good day. The request is still in place, right? So it's felt good to be able to say, it doesn't sound like it's a good day today, but maybe we can pick another day. And then this morning he called and he said, I'm in the neighborhood. Can I come over? I can be there in about 10 minutes, put up your mini blinds, and boom, it happened. So letting go of the expectation of like, well, I asked, so it has to happen like my way, my time, all of that kind of stuff has been a little bit freeing.
Right. Well, and you can actually stack requests, right? I would like some help setting up my mini blinds. Yes. Awesome. Right. I would like to request you to let me know when you can do that. Right. Then go, okay, cool. Now commit to, I don't care when it is. Right. And then you can even go, my preference would be before this date. I really don't care when it is, but my preference would be before the end of September. If we can have them up, I would love it if you could let me know when works for you. I would love to have it by the end of September. Does that make sense? And we can begin stacking, right? I learned to be okay with it. They said it was gratitude, right? So it was doing what you were told was called gratitude, right? I would never ask for anything. Changes in a restaurant. Oh yeah. Okay. So this is actually a really great example of having requests and preferences. I spent 30 years as a chef. In a restaurant. You can ask for anything you want, any way you want it. The guys in the kitchen do not care, right? Unless the menu specifically says no substitutions, the guys in the kitchen and women in the kitchen do not care. They do not care. You can modify a lasagna into a peanut butter sandwich. I have no horse in that race. I will make it any way you want it. If you get it the way you ordered it and then you send it back, now we have a problem, right? So if you order it without modifiers and it gets to your table and you say, no, I want you to take this off and this off and this off and this off and cook it a different way, now I have a problem, right? So when you're asking when you have preferences, most of those preferences, you can take them or leave them. You can have it go any way you want. You are expressing a preference, and it's really important to recognize that you can do anything you want with that. The worst thing that somebody can do is say no, right? They can say, I have a different preference, right? Is this all making sense? Right? So these are the 4 types. And I have a worksheet that I have people do. And I will put a link to, actually I'll put it right here. This is a link to That's a link to a PDF that I use, and it has preferences, boundaries, preferences, requests, and preferences. And that is the order in which you feel strongly about them. Does that make sense? All right. One second. Do this again. So those are really the four pieces of setting boundaries, the four types of boundaries that you can set with somebody. And the more comfortable you are with what kind of boundaries there are, you understand what you can set. Does that make sense? Does anybody have any questions at this moment? And you feel free to just put a hand up or unmute yourself. Terry?
If you've never had preferences because you've not been allowed to, and then you're suddenly doing it and you're getting all this resistance from people, and how do you build up your confidence before you start doing it? To actually say these words, do I just say it into a mirror, or
start with really easy things that are really easy to have preferences around, right? For instance, the next time someone says, "What do you want for dinner?" have an opinion. Okay. I would prefer this. Where would you like to go? Because you always have a preference, right? You always know what you want, right? It's very rare that, and so when you have a request that's really easy to fulfill. I have a request. I would like Thursday off, right? I would like to request Thursday off, right? And whether you need Thursday off or whatever, it's irrelevant. Learn to ask for things and start asking for easy things to deliver first. And that's how you do it. What you will recognize is that most people around you are happy to honor your requests, are happy to honor your preferences. If you get pushback, right? If you get pushback, the nice thing is pushback on a preference, right? You just keep stating your preference, because your preference is not a boundary. Your preference is not a request, right?
Right.
I would like this, but that is just fine as well. But if I got to choose, this is what I would do, right? Would you like to watch this or that? Would you like to, where would you like to go? What day would you like to have the meeting? Right? We can talk about our scheduling in that way, right? My preference is Tuesday for meetings. That is my preference, right? Tuesdays don't work for me. I would like to request Wednesday. Okay, I can make Wednesday work in my schedule, right? You know what? Wednesdays don't work at all for me. It is my busiest day of the week. I cannot accommodate a Wednesday in any way. As a matter of fact, it's the one day of my week that is completely out. So I need to ask you to pick a different day. What other day works for you?
Okay.
Is this making sense?
It makes total sense. And I do it in my business world.
Mm-hmm.
I don't do it in relationships. It's almost, I don't know why. And that's what I'm trying to take control back of.
Right.
And because I want to re-enter the dating world with better skill sets.
So the best way to do it, right? The best way to do it is to know what your deal breakers are first. Know what your deal breakers are first, because you only have a couple of them, right? Like yeah. Most people don't have more than 4 or 5 like real deal breakers. Like I have 3, and I mean, granted, I'm an easygoing enough guy, but but if you really know what your deal breakers are, right, then you can set a boundary with somebody, right? And if the first time you set a boundary, they push back on your boundary, you go, oh yeah, you're not my dude. Like, very clear, because anyone
Okay.
that I am dating, anyone that I date doesn't push back on my boundaries. Right? I don't date people who push on my boundaries. Right? I date people who respect my boundaries. So if we're on our second or third date and I set a boundary and they honor it, I like
Things
that.
are looking good then.
Things are looking good. If I set a boundary and they go, well, you go, okay, I don't, then set a couple more. But like, they just, who's Maya Angelou said, when people show you who they are, believe them. Right. And if you
Right.
set a boundary and somebody pushes against it, that's who they are. They're going to push against your boundaries. I don't date people who push against my boundaries. I date people who respect my boundaries. Right. And people who respect my boundaries, that is an indicator to me that it is safe to set more boundaries.
Okay.
And the more boundaries that we can set, the more boundaries that we do set, what does that do in our relationships? It gives people a really clear indication of where we are, of what we're doing, of what we want, and it makes them better able to be partners for us. And when they set boundaries with you, I don't like this. I like this. I don't like this. If somebody that you really liked told you that they liked a thing and didn't like this other thing, wouldn't you love to know that?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
let's give our partners the benefit of letting them know what we like and what we don't like. Because think about, if you really liked somebody, you would want to know what they liked and what they didn't. Right?
Yeah.
That would be important. That would be super valuable, super useful information for you. And it works the same for our business relationships. If I have a client who I know to stay away from certain subjects, right? Because it's just they're not ready to talk about that. They're not ready to have
Right.
that conversation. And I have learned that because they go, I'm not ready to have that conversation. Good to know. Now I'm not bumping up against problem areas with a client.
Right.
Right. And I'm happy to challenge them. But every time a client has ever set a boundary with me, like, we're here. One of the things that I do with my clients that I'm really, that's a really ingrained part of what I do is, are you interested in feedback about that? I mean, I know that I'm a coach. I know that you hired me to help you with clarity. And if we're talking about something that has some very clear intensity for you, I'm going to ask if you want feedback with that. I'm going to ask if you want, are you interested in my opinion? Or can I ask you a question about that? Can we dig into this a little bit? Does that make sense?
That makes total sense. Because I do that with my art clients all the time.
For sure. Sure. So
Thank you.
Yeah. So
I
being
think that confidence back.
Mm-hmm.
Comes
from
having
practice.
boundaries, it is what I didn't have before. So that's a skill set that I've got to practice
For sure.
in the dating world now.
Yep. Absolutely. Thank you, Terry. I appreciate that. I love it when people share their preferences. Communication up front, even when it is initially uncomfortable. So here's the great thing about being really forward. The moment you know that you can have an uncomfortable conversation with somebody, it now paves the way for uncomfortable conversations. Does that make sense? I am now comfortable having uncomfortable conversations because I know that it is safe to have uncomfortable conversations. Who here has learned very recently that it is safe for them to have uncomfortable conversations? I know a few hands that should be going up, right? I am clear that a few of you have learned very, very recently that it has become now safe to have what was previously like an unimaginable conversation, right? Because we've set boundaries. Did you have questions, Susanna?
Yeah, I do. It's with me growing up, my system has become literally hardwired for that fight or flight and the expectation of some sort of fairly severe consequence to setting a boundary, which is like either you try to avoid it, and then the only way to actually have it enforced is to go to the extreme other end. Because they'll just get run over, and it's trying to first break that pattern and then recognize who is unhealthy for me in that way and who would be healthy in that way when I've never really seen what healthy is.
Cool.
And then to be able to step back and not go to that exploding place.
So you're talking about a couple different things, right? So let's deal with the first one. The first one you're talking about is your nervous system gets out of whack, right?
Yes.
You have an internal physical nervous system response to the idea of setting a boundary.
Yeah, I expect to have to fight tooth and nail, sometimes for my own safety. And it doesn't matter if it's not dangerous. It's just like the hypervigilance overrides everything.
Right. There are lots of things that you can do. I do breath work, and you can go onto my website and learn certain types of breath work that will drop your body out of fight or flight immediately, right? The first piece is getting your nervous system under control. When we can get our nervous system under control, and I'll just go a quick easy one with you. 4-4-6-2 breathing. Inhale for 4, hold for 4, exhale for 6, hold for 2. Repeat for 3 minutes. Okay. Inhale for 4, hold for 4, exhale for 6, hold for 2. In 3 minutes, you will have shifted back into your parasympathetic nervous system, right? Which means you're not having the anxiety response. And then you can either state your preference or your request or set your boundary without feeling like your body is in danger. Okay. Once you can do that a few times, you will begin to build a body of experience that will demonstrate to you that it is safe with these people to set boundaries. But what you do is take 3 minutes, do some breathing, calm your body, right? What will also happen is you will begin teaching your nervous system that it can trust you, right? You can teach your nervous system that you can be trusted, right? And just like I said earlier, begin with easy requests, begin with easy boundaries, begin with boundaries with people who love you, right? And
that would depend on who it was, and what the situation is, because it's, as much as I love a lot of the people in my life, healthy boundaries is not exactly our family motto. Unhealthy codependence and avoidance, more or less. So
okay, but you get to choose whether you're going to participate in that.
Yeah, and that's
Okay.
I am learning.
Right.
And
But for all of those dynamics, I need you all to understand that you get to choose whether you are going to participate in that or not. Right? There is a reason why I am not particularly close with my mother, right? And there is a reason for that, right? Why I was very close with my dad and not particularly close with my mother, right? And there's a reason for that. I couldn't get my boundaries respected around my mom, so I stopped going around my mom, right? I couldn't get my boundaries respected around certain clients. They're no longer my clients, right? Like, no, you don't just pick up your phone and call me in the middle of the night when you're wrapped around the axle about something. Like, I stopped taking the calls, right? And so understand that in all of these health relationships where there may be some difficulty setting a boundary, you get to choose whether you're going to be in that relationship or how involved in that relationship you are. You know, and we're going to get the, yeah, but it's my family. Yeah, but it's your health. But it's your health. You get to choose, right? You get to choose whether you're going to engage in unhealthy relationships with your family or not. If you are going to be healthy and it costs some people in your life, if your health costs ejecting some unhealthy people from your life, who's the most important person in your life? You are. Okay. And around our children, right? Because we're going to have the conversation. What about my kids? Your children will never do what you do. They will always do what you model 100% of the time. And when you teach, when you model, I am going to shrink myself. I am going to contract in order to be a part of this family. What they see is that in order to be a part of this family, they must shrink, they must contract. You are teaching them to play small just like you. Or you can teach them that they have worth by demonstrating that you have worth. And that they are not the victim of anybody. I am not a victim of my relationships. Every single one of my relationships, I am a volunteer in. And the same thing is true for you. You are a volunteer in every single one of your relationships. You are there voluntarily. Oh, thank you, Katie. But the point is that you are in every single relationship volunteer. From your work relationships, like if you're being abused at work, why do you work there? Right? If you're being abused by your family, why are you engaged with your family? If you're being abused by your husband or your boyfriend or the guy you're dating, why are you involved in that thing? Like, why are you still there? Right? If you're not setting preferences, if you're not making requests, if you're not setting boundaries, if you have 0 deal breakers or refuse to enforce them, right, then you are now volunteering for exactly what you're getting. Does that make sense? So I want to talk. It does, yeah, and it's hard, and it's hard. It's hard, and we will talk at the end about what to do about that. Right. We will talk at the end about the next steps. This is just a quick workshop on how to deal with some stuff. So what I want to talk about is some language for setting boundaries and what I want to do. And I will put this all into a PDF for you that I will send out with the recording. But language for setting boundaries is that doesn't work for me. Right. That doesn't work for me. I need to be paid for my time or for my work. I need you to not speak to me like that. That doesn't work for me. Is great language for setting boundaries. I am not available for this conversation, for that type of support, for that project, for this type of relationship. I am not available at that time. I am not available is great boundary setting language. I'm not available. And it doesn't come with explanation. It doesn't need to come with a reason. I am not available. Does that make sense? My whatever is super important to me. My time is super important to me. My sleep is super important to me. My nutrition, my friends, my workout, like whatever it is, this is how we set boundaries. Hey, babe, come on, let's just go out to dinner. My workout is super important to me. My sleep is super important to me. I am not available to go out until midnight on a weeknight. My sleep is super important to me, right? My time is super important to me. I have, my sleep, my time is super important to me. I need to request that if we have a lunch date that you show up, or if we have a meeting that you show up on time and prepared, for our colleagues, for our whatever. My time is super important to me. I need to request. Here's what I need. And then tell them what you need, right? Here's what I need, right? And talk about what you need. Setting boundaries is always about us and never about them. It's never about getting somebody to comply. It's never about getting somebody to bend. It's never about getting somebody to comply, because they don't like to comply any more than we do. However, if they know what we need, we now give people the opportunity to provide that. Does that make sense? So let me check my schedule is a great one. Hey, do you want to do this? Let me check my schedule. Hey, let's do, are you available for this, that, or the other thing? Let me check my schedule. I will get back to you. I don't know if that will work. I need, somebody at work says, I need you to do this, that, or the other thing. I don't know if that will work. Let me get back to you. This is great language for setting boundaries. I am available for this much time. So if somebody wants to do something and it's gonna take forever, whatever, I'm available for 40 minutes. Yes, I can take that call. I have 10 minutes to talk. Right? Yes, I would love to go out. I would love to go out with you. I need to be home by 8. That is, yes, I can take on that additional project. Here are the parameters that I need to set. Right? These are great boundary setting language. And when somebody crosses boundaries, that's going to mark the end of this conversation. Right? That's like that. That's the end of this phone call. That's the end of this thing. I now need to leave. Like this is the we can pick this back up when you are not yelling, when we're calm, when I have time, when you have time, when all these things, we can pick this back up. This is the end of that. I'm going to hang up now. Is that making sense? If people cannot respect your boundaries, end the communication. Just end the communication. That's going to be all the time I can devote to this. I am no longer available for this conversation. Does that make sense? Right? And I'm not arguing with you. I'm simply saying that I am no longer available to continue going over this. I am no longer available for this. Actions for setting boundaries, and because I like actions, don't answer the phone. Just send it straight to voicemail. Somebody calling you does not obligate you to pick up the phone. Somebody leaving you a voicemail does not obligate you to listen to it. Somebody texting you does not obligate you to respond, either immediately or in the future. So being in somebody giving you attention does not obligate you to accept, absorb anything. They stand up and leave. Thank you very much. That's just going to be the end of this date. I'm done. Thank you very much. That is the end of this meeting. Thank you very much, Mom. That is going to be the end of this dinner for me. I now have to go. Stand up, leave. You can stand up and leave. You can stand up and leave at work. You can stand up and leave with your family. You can stand up and leave with your friends. You can stand up and leave with a romantic partner. That is going to be the end of this conversation. We can pick this back up when you're not yelling, when you're not abusive, when you're not whatever. But there is absolutely zero. I need you. What did you have in mind? Right? What did you have in mind? Hey, can you do this? Yeah. What does that look like? What would you like? Right? What would that look like for you? So I I want to get into a few of the examples that you guys left in those questions, and I can't believe how many of you guys put in answers. So I want to go through a couple of these because they were amazing, right? Setting a boundary without feeling like I'm creating disappointment or not fulfilling an expectation. This is huge. How many people feel like if an expectation has been set, they now have an obligation? Right? Like if I said yes once, I now need to say yes every single time. Right? You don't. You can say yes once and then no. Right? If somebody has an expectation that you will do something, say something, go somewhere, do a thing, that is their problem. That is theirs. It is not yours. If they have an expectation, if you believe that there is an expectation to something that you have not agreed to, it is not your problem. Somebody else's expectations of you are not your problem. Somebody said, I ended up marrying someone who treats me with the same disparaging narrative that my dad had with my mother. So now we're looking at generational stuff. I wish to show her how not to fall for someone like that and hope to give her the tools to be limitless in her life by seeing me take myself back. This is about you standing in your own power. This is absolutely about you standing in your own power, right? Begin setting those boundaries and then holding them. Like I said before, our children will always do what we do. They will never do what we say. They will always do what we do. They will always do what we model for them. And for some of you, that's really disappointing information. But our children will always do what we do, what they have seen us do. And when our children begin to see us setting boundaries, they will begin to set boundaries. When they will see that it is safe for us to set boundaries, they will see that it is safe for them to set boundaries. Does this make sense? Cool. What do you do when somebody continuously attempts to knock down every single boundary you put in place, or challenges your boundaries intentionally just to get a reaction to wield against you? What you do is you end relationships. Like what you do is you set a boundary and go, this is a boundary. And if you cross it, it is a deal breaker. Right? Because boundaries can become deal breakers, right? This is a boundary. Crossing my boundaries turns those boundaries into deal breakers. Crossing my boundaries is a deal breaker, right? That's the whole point of a boundary. I will not be in a relationship with someone who cannot respect my boundaries. I will not be, because I love me, because I respect me, because I have love for myself. My boundaries are not arbitrary. My boundaries are based around my self-worth and around my self-respect. Right? I don't have friends who shit talk me. And some of you have been around me and my friends, and there a lot of times guys are in this kind of constant running verbal sort of battle, and tearing each other down. The group of friends, the group of men that surround me don't do that. They don't do that because I don't tolerate it. Because not only will you not tear me down, you will not tear my brothers down. Right? That is my boundary. And I don't hang out with men who need to tear each other down. Right? And the men in my life, I'm so fortunate to have men who can express vulnerably because we have boundaries. again, I don't have people in my life who play this kind of running verbal battle. We're getting close to 90 minutes, and so what I want to do is I want to make sure that I want to let you know how to, if this has been interesting for you, if this is has created some curiosity in you, I want to make it clear how to continue to work with me if that is something that you would like to do. If you have questions about what that would look like, I have several different options for you. I have a self-guided program called Thrive. And basically it's everything that I teach my clients. Thank you, Vanessa. It's everything that I teach my clients, and it's all in a self-study format. Takes 8 to 12 weeks to go through, and there's a live call once a week that goes with it. I have a small group of women called the Become Limitless group, and there are, I think, 4 openings right now. If you would like to be in that group, we get together once a week. It is a 90-minute call every single week, and you get 1 hour of one-on-one direct coaching with me. It is an extraordinary group of women, and it's kind of taking on some new it's taking on some new people, and it is right now there, I believe there 4, there might be 5 spaces left, but those spaces will fill, and if you are interested in those, I would love to have a conversation with you about that. And if you would like to know what one-on-one coaching with me looks like, we get together once a week, and we get into what's going on with you. What I am going to do is I'm going to put a link in the chat right now. And this is a link for a 1-hour session with me. If you would like to talk about what it would look like to work with me, if you would like to talk about one of the groups, or just have an understanding of what getting into my coaching looks like, this is what it looks like. It looks like setting hard boundaries. It looks like standing up for yourself. It looks like having the support of someone who has very, very clear boundaries, who has, I'll see Vanessa. And it looks like a ton of support, and the people who have worked with me know what that type of support looks like. So I encourage you, use this link, schedule an appointment with me. If this has been good, and this is the type of support, this is the type of the type of backup that you would like in your own life. If you would like that, let's have a conversation. Let's talk about that. If anybody would like, and I just wanted to say that because I wanted to cover that and make sure we stay in our own time. If any of you would like to do some one-on-one coaching right now, I am happy to take a few minutes with as many of you as you would like, one at a time, and talk about specific examples. If you would like one-on-one direct coaching right now, and you can just use the hand raise function, use the little hand raise thing, or raise your hand, and we can do like hot seat coaching in this moment and talk about an example, and we can walk all the way through it. Is there anybody who would like to do one-on-one, like a one-on-one example right now?
Can I just share a story, Dave? Real
Absolutely.
quick, and then I have to jump. I'm not available for that has been, thank you, chink, for that. This last week, my employer, who has literally been driving me out of my brain with this bullshit, just, anyway, it has literally just made me want to pull my hair out every single semester. And he asked if I wanted to teach this particular class next year. And I said, I'm not available for that. And he was like, what do you want me to schedule a time difference? And I said, no, I'm not available to teach that class. Or are you available to teach these other classes? Absolutely, but I'm not available to teach that class. Well, do you want me to give it to somebody else? I absolutely do. And I'll tell you what, I haven't felt that free and that let go of that mental crazy I've been teaching there for 3 years. And I'll tell you what, it felt amazing. So that I'm not available for that. Thank you. Thank you for that. It changed everything for me.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much, Athena. Susanna, let's do it.
Okay, I guess mine, it's not so much the other people, and leading from my last question, it's more managing things like PTSD responses to that expectation of pain and taking the hit while in the moment. And it's because strict meditation doesn't work. It's just like bombarding with an over amount. I found Tai Chi does help calm my system because there's enough distraction that it quiets my head. But it's, I guess, other to manage it, especially in the moment.
In the moment, there is nothing that will shift your nervous system like breath work. And before I say anything else, I am not a therapist. I am not a doctor.
No, I'm in therapy, so
I'm
understand
a coach.
that.
Right. I just want to be really clear that like PTSD, big D depression, it's not my lane. And I'm real clear about that, and so, fine. Yeah. But that being said, getting into the breath work, getting into, have you come to breath work with me?
No, I've been really struggling with meditation. So I've decided starting with something like Tai Chi, where it's got more of that distracted element so that I can get used to everything going on is a much easier lead in for me. Okay.
Because this is very, very, it's very active. It's not meditation. You are engaged. You are all the way engaged. I mean, you are so engaged, you enter a state of transient hypofrontality. I mean, that is how engaged that you are. So I encourage you to check it out. And being able to enter that state will enable you to shift some trauma, shift some emotional scarring, and move some stories up and out. So in the moment, so you get some of that practice and you get some of that good breath work in, then in the moment, you can take 2 seconds and do some of that box breathing, do some of that clarity breath, do a Tumo breath, which I can tell you all about, and you can get that nervous system response and be able to manage your nervous system so you're not going into fight or flight, you're not going into a PTSD response.
Sweet.
So get into nervous state responses rather than trying. You're never going to think your way through it. You're never going to think your way out of it. Shift your nervous system and then stretch yourself into uncomfortable action. Does that make sense?
I think so. I don't wholly understand it because I haven't experienced it, but I think it should make sense. Yeah.
If only it was free, try it twice a week for you to totally try out and see if it worked for you. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Anybody else? Anybody want to go through a challenging situation, Marissa? Let's do it.
So I actually used a request last night. I started dating a new guy, and he's like has had no red flags, and we have been seeing each other because he's a teacher. So we've been seeing each other, and like he's very responsible, got his life together, has his shit together. I don't date those people, but I'm like, okay, this is going really well. And then he went back to school, and I saw him for the first time in like a week. And we've been seeing each other like almost daily, and it felt very fluid. I was like, this is a little bit much, but I know you're going back to school. So I was like, okay, we're going to have a more regular schedule because I want to make sure I'm taking care of myself. But so last night I made a request, and I said, because I was feeling a little bit like, we knew when we were going to be seeing each other and regularly, because we kind of set the expectation like when we were in person.
Mm.
And then it kind of felt like pulling teeth to be like, can we spend some time together just in the last like week before he went just back to school. So I was like, okay. So when I saw him last night, I said, and I had invited him to a friend thing. And I was like, that's kind of a big deal. I probably should have verbalized, if it's a big deal for you to meet my friends, I totally get it. But he kind of didn't tell me until like 5 minutes beforehand, like, oh, sorry, I went to a different thing.
Mm.
So I said I would like to request, I actually used the term before that. And I said, I'd like to request that I know when I'll be seeing you next. Like, cause that would feel better for me. Cause again, I have like this codependent thing I'm working on. And
What a
maybe
great boundary.
but yeah, so I put that out there, and then he responded and was totally honest that this month mark is kind of like a little freak out moment for him. And he's like, because we're in our 30s, and he's like, I don't want to waste anybody's time, and like I don't really know what I want, and all this stuff. So again, I didn't really like get my request, but I got a lot of honest feedback. So one of the things, I'm getting to my point, sorry. My point is
Yeah, just
that
fine.
I'm wondering if I just, because I have been in a relationship where it was so hot and cold, and he mentioned his previous relationship where he was living with the girl, like they were together for 3 years, and they broke up multiple times. And I'm like really not into breaking up multiple times. I like think like a breakup is like, that's it, that's a solid boundary for me. And he's kind of coming into it with this, but and for example, he said that he broke up with this girl, and then 3 days later called her, was like, do you want to move in with me? And I'm like, what? Like, so obviously like he's just not in touch with his feelings. And so I'm just wondering, like, what would you say for somebody that like, I want somebody that kind of is able to like identify what their feelings are. And like it was going very well, and I mean, I think we talked a lot through it, but just that's like something that
Right.
I'm coming up with, because I'm like, well, it's like, if you don't know what you want, I don't want to be strung along,
Right. So, what are let's talk this out. What are his concerns? His concerns is that I don't want to waste anybody's time. Right.
He has
With-
this like undue pressure that we're in our 30s and he needs to like commit or something right now, which is not how I feel. I'm like, we're dating, like,
Right. But what that means to me, what it sounds like to me is I don't know how you feel. And so I don't know if I'm wasting your time or if I'm doing this thing. And so I would encourage you, restate the boundary, right? Restate the request,
yeah,
but preface it with, I really like you.
yeah,
Okay.
Yep.
It sounds like I need some validation, right? I need some validation. And go, I really like you. And when I really like somebody, I like to see them. And I understand if you're busy, I would just like to know when I'm going to see you next.
right.
Whatever answer is fine,
Mm-hmm.
right? Whatever the answer is fine. But I don't like knowing when I don't like not knowing when I'm going to see somebody I really like next.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
It feels good to me to know when I'm going to see you.
Right. Right. Okay.
Right.
I appreciate
That
that.
that feels good to me.
Yeah.
Right. And if he goes, yeah, what if I don't, what if I don't even know?
Yeah.
It would feel good to me
Yeah.
to know when I'm going to see you next. And it's now in his court.
Right.
Right. It is now in his court. Right.
Yeah.
Which means that he gets to choose to, like, you have told him what you need. You have told him that you liked him, and you have told him what you want.
Yeah.
Right? If he cannot give you that, it is too early in the relationship to begin, right? Like if you, okay, that's cool. Like that's totally cool. If I can't say I want to know when I'm going to see you next, and you can't give me an answer, you're not my dude.
Right.
Because your dude will very easily be able to answer that question. Your dude will pull out his phone, look at his calendar, and have that answer.
Right. And he's very routine oriented. So I know like,
Right.
yeah, like
Right.
he's capable of it. So yeah,
Right.
it's
So
yeah,
your dude will have the answer to that question
right.
and will love giving it to you.
Right.
Right. Oh yeah, cool. No, how about Friday?
Right.
Right. How about
Yeah.
Thursday? How about Wednesday? Like whatever.
Yeah, because I just last week was like, I was like all week, like, okay, like, he's in school. And like the weekend came and I'm like, my expectation, I was bad. I wasn't verbalizing my needs
Right.
properly. I was like, what are you doing? Like I was dropping hints, but I wasn't being clear because I didn't want to seem needy, So
No, you don't seem
but-
needy when you say I like you and I would like to see you.
right, exactly. Yeah. I
That-
just like
that-
thank you. I needed a little bit
Right.
of help with that situation.
No, absolutely. I
Yeah.
like you and I would like to see you. That doesn't sound needy to me. That sounds like a girl who likes me.
Right.
I
Yeah.
like girls who
I
like
didn't
me.
think of that as like validation, but you're right. I'm like thinking of it like, oh, he doesn't know what he wants. So like, because I
No.
did express to him, no, I like you. And I
Yeah.
like how things are
Ask
going.
for what you want. I want to see you more often than later.
Right. Right. Exactly.
Right. This is what I would like. Cool.
Yes.
Is that good?
Yeah. No, thank you. I appreciate that.
Awesome. Awesome. Anybody else? Cool. Well, if that's it, I want to thank you guys so much. I will get this video edited, and I will make sure that you get all of the links, all of the worksheets that we talked about, including all of this language sent out. Please make an appointment with me if you are interested in knowing what any of these groups or with what one-on-one coaching with me looks like. I would love to have a conversation with you. I teach breath work. We do mindfulness. There's a ton of clarity and the support right behind you. So thank you guys so much for showing up. I appreciate you. If you weren't able to be here, you missed out. However, you do get the recording, and I appreciate you so much. And I'll catch you guys on the next workshop. Bye.